All right, Sally, it's another week. The Public Education Department released a re-entry guidance for returning to school. They discuss a hybrid model of instruction with a combination of in-person and online days of learning. What does that mean for athletics and activities?
Well, first off, welcome back, JP.
Thank you.
I know people have been asking, where have you been? And I want to thank Tyler for stepping in for you. But, you had the knee replacement surgery, and hopefully it's doing better. And we're just glad to have you back.
Thank you.
Now, going back to your question, the governor mentioned and the return to guidelines came out last week as it's a hybrid model to start school. Now, what does that mean? And that's what right now what I'm working on as far as can we have fall sports in a hybrid model? We have some problems about practice. Can you get kids back to practice when they're not in school, so on and so forth. So now that we have those guidelines, now it is how long are we going to be in the hybrid model? I do know the Public Education Department wants to get kids back quickly to school full time. And so how long are we going to be in the hybrid model is a question, and how are we going to make that work? But again, everything changes every week, and so that's our new goal as to how we're going to have fall sports within the hybrid model.
Several schools have started summer workouts. They're working in pods with a 5-to-1 ratio. Can a program have one pod of 5 compete against another pod of 5?
That word you just said, compete. We cannot have competition. It is still individual drills. We have opened up where you can use equipment and balls within the pod, but we cannot, go from one pod to the other. For example, volleyball, even if you had 5 versus 5, you're sharing that equipment, and that equipment can only be within the pod. And so at this point, there is no competition.
With so many questions still unanswered, like will large tournaments be allowed this year? Can you compete against out-of-state teams? Should athletic directors and coaches start to change their schedules?
I've talked to the athletic directors. Let's hold off on changing schedules. Let's see where we're at. In fact, Friday I'm going to have coaches meetings with every single fall sport just to some conversation. The whole thing is to communicate as to where we are. I have told the athletic directors and the coaches from the beginning, we should not change schedules until, let's say, mid-July. We don't want to go something quickly and then it changes everything, so it's fluid. And so mid-July is when I would say let's start looking at schedules and seeing what we need to do to adapt to the situation.
Is there a cutoff date? You'd mentioned things are so fluid, but is there a cutoff date when the NMAA will decide if fall sports will start on time?
I don't know if there's a cutoff date. I keep saying mid-July. We need to have something in place by mid-July, third week in July, because pretty soon school will start, and we just need to figure that all out. And so I think the next 2 weeks, JP, is going to be critical as to what's going to happen. This morning I was reading a newspaper article, and UNM and New Mexico State athletic directors were talking about wear your face mask for fall sports, and I brought mine in here because, that's what we're talking about. It is critical. We want fall sports and we want it to happen. And so we need to start now. And I've been saying this from the beginning. What we do now is going to determine what's going to happen in August. And I have been saying that since March and April. And it is critical now that if it is mask wearing, we need to all get on board and wear the masks, so we can see what's going to happen with fall sports. So going back to your question, that middle of July, third week in July, we have to make some determination as to what's going to happen or how we're going to navigate COVID-19 and fall sports.
And lastly, we always like to wrap this up kind of where we're at each week in this progress and these guidelines and these summer workouts. So where are we at kind of right now?
We're positive. We just talked about schedules and so on and so forth, and back and forth and how fluid things in. But where we're at is we have to stay positive. The one thing is I have to continue to communicate. We all have to be on the same page. We're in this together. And that is summer workouts, we're in this together. I know it's a little bit restrictive, but we've started. And now where are we going to go for August? But we all need to be on the same page. And the first thing, JP, is safety. We have to think of the kids. We have to think of the safety of our kids. And we need to get kids back in school. That is the key, is to have kids in a normalcy in school so that they, after school, can go to practice. You know, this weekend, the Albuquerque Public Schools, which my son was a senior this year, they had some graduation ceremonies, some videos out there. And they had videos of what was going on in schools and some, you know, the kids playing and so on and so forth, and just trying to figure out, you know, just trying to show what happens in the school environment. And I looked at that, JP, and everything that they showed was athletics and activities. And that is the school world. That is so important to kids, and it's so important to that education environment. So that is first and foremost. We need to get our kids back in school. On all those videos, they were smiling, they were excited, the school spirit. So that is what we need. And once we get them back in school, then we're going to be able to play sports and have activities. But where does that start? That starts now. That starts now in doing what's right. This weekend I received some emails about, again, parents bringing their kids or a group of kids, you know, out to practice. Well, that is great that parents are involved, but within parents being involved, we can't have a 15-to-1 ratio of parents. We can't have a group of kids working out together. It's great that they're working out, but if we're working out, let's stay in those 5-to-1 pods. You know, in everything we do, we need to make sure we follow these guidelines. And I know they're restrictive, and I know people are getting antsy. But over and over, JP, we've got to follow these guidelines now because we want to play fall sports and we want to play in August, September, October. And we need to see those kids smiling and involved in all those activities that they do throughout the school year. And so all I ask is, let's do it right now. Let's stay positive. We will continue to communicate with everyone, and we're going to play again, New Mexico.